Sterling Rahm was marrying the love of his life in front of 300 guests when he noticed her. A stranger, sitting alone at table 12, wearing a cheap dress among designer gowns, staring at him with haunted eyes. No one knew who she was. Security hadn't flagged her. She wasn't on the guest list. But there was something about her face, something that made Sterling's blood run cold. The way she twisted her napkin nervously, just like he did with his tie. The shape of her nose. Those hazel eyes with flecks of gold. Sterling had a secret. A decision he and Janet made 23 years ago that haunted them every single day. A choice that destroyed them from the inside. And now, on what should be the happiest day of his life, that secret was sitting at table 12. When Steph, his housekeeper of 18 years, walked up to the stranger and went pale, Sterling knew. His past had just walked into his present, and nothing would ever be the same again. What happened next shocked everyone in that ballroom. Welcome to Kindness Arena. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen connections that change lives, please help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter and deserve to be heard by hitting the subscribe button, liking the video, comment your thoughts, where you're watching from, and share it with someone who needs it to stay motivated. Your support keeps these powerful, true stories alive. Sterling Rahm stood at the altar of the Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom, his tailored Armani suit fitting perfectly across his broad shoulders. At 45, he'd built an empire from nothing, tech investments, real estate, a venture capital firm that had launched dozens of successful startups. But on this September afternoon, none of that mattered. Today, he was marrying Janet, the woman who'd stood by him through everything. Well, almost everything. The secret they shared lived in the shadows of their success, a ghost that haunted their quiet moments. 23 years ago, when they were broke college dropouts sleeping in his beat-up Civic, Janet had gotten pregnant. They were 19, terrified, and utterly unprepared. After weeks of agonizing debate, they'd made the hardest decision of their lives. They placed their baby girl in foster care, promising themselves they'd come back when they could provide a real life for her. But life had a way of moving forward. Sterling threw himself into building his first company. Janet finished her degree and became a lawyer. Years blurred together in a whirlwind of work and survival. By the time they'd made it, their daughter would have been 7, then 10, then 15. The shame of waiting so long became its own prison. They convinced themselves she was better off, that she'd found a loving family, that reopening old wounds would only cause pain. They'd found each other again 5 years ago at a charity gala, both successful, both single, both carrying the same unspoken grief. This wedding was supposed to be their fresh start. Sterling's attention drifted to the assembled guests, business associates, childhood friends, Janet's large extended family. The ceremony was beautiful. Now, during the reception, he should have been celebrating. Instead, his eyes kept returning to a young woman sitting alone at table 12. She'd arrived late, slipping in during the vows. No one seemed to know her. She wore a simple navy dress from a department store, nothing like the designer gowns most guests wore. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She was thin, almost fragile, with haunted eyes that seemed to take in everything. "Do you know who that is?" Sterling whispered to his best man during the toasts. "No idea, man. Maybe one of Janet's cousins." But Sterling had met all of Janet's family. This woman was a stranger. Across the ballroom, Steph Mardi moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, directing caterers and ensuring everything ran smoothly. At 62, Steph had been with Sterling for 18 years, since before his first million, back when he was just a hungry entrepreneur working out of a one-bedroom apartment. She'd started as his housekeeper and had become part of the family, the one constant through his dizzying rise. Steph had watched him fall apart after failed relationships, had seen him reconnect with Janet, had witnessed the joy and terror in his eyes when he proposed. She'd also noticed what he didn't talk about, the way his gaze lingered on families with young daughters at restaurants, how he changed the channel when adoption stories came on the news, the way he and Janet both went quiet every year on the same date in March. Steph had never pried, but she'd pieced together the truth over the years. Some things you just knew when you paid attention. Now, her attention is fixed on the young woman at table 12. Something about her made Steph's heart race. The shape of her nose, the way she held her shoulders, the nervous habit of twisting her napkin into knots, just like Sterling did with his tie when he was anxious. Steph approached the table slowly, her mind working through the impossibility taking shape before her. "Hello, dear," she said gently. "I'm Steph. I work for Mr. Rahm. I don't believe we've met." The young woman looked up, and Steph's breath caught. Those eyes, they were Janet's eyes, that exact shade of hazel with flecks of gold. I'm Sophie. Sophie Jones." The name came out uncertain, like she wasn't entirely sure of it herself. "I probably shouldn't be here. I crashed the wedding. I know it's terrible," but her voice broke. "I had to see them." Steph pulled out a chair and sat down, her professional duties forgotten. "How old are you, Sophie?" 23. "Well, almost. My birthday's in March." Steph's hand went to her heart. "March 15th. Sophie's eyes widened. "How did you—" "Come with me, sweetheart. There's someone you need to talk to." Sterling was cutting the cake with Janet, photographers capturing their perfect smiles, when he felt a hand on his arm. Steph's face was pale, her eyes urgent. "Sterling, I need you. Now, both of you." The authority in her voice cut through everything. Sterling and Janet exchanged a glance and followed Steph to a private alcove behind the ballroom, where the young woman from table 12 stood trembling. "Sterling, Janet," Steph said quietly, "this is Sophie Jones. She's 23 years old. Her birthday is March 15th. She was adopted by the Jones family when she was 2, after spending time in foster care." Janet's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Sterling felt the room tilt. "I know I shouldn't have come," Sophie said quickly, tears streaming down her face. "I found my adoption records last year. It took me months to work up the courage to look for you. When I found out about the wedding, I don't know what I thought. I just needed to see you once, to see if you ever thought about me, if I was worth remembering." "Oh my God," Janet whispered, her hand covering her mouth. "Oh my God, it's you. I'm so sorry," Sophie continued, words tumbling out. "The Jones were good people, but they died in a car accident when I was 16. I've been on my own since then, working, trying to finish community college. I'm not here for money or to ruin anything. I just wanted to see the people who gave me life. I wanted to know if you ever wondered." An hour later, the reception continued. But everything had changed. Sterling stood at the microphone, Janet beside him, Sophie between them. His voice trembled as he addressed the confused crowd. "Everyone, there's someone I need to introduce. This is Sophie. He looked down at the young woman who had his stubborn chin and Janet's brilliant eyes. "She's our daughter. 23 years ago, Janet and I made the hardest decision of our lives. Today, through a miracle we don't deserve, she found her way back to us." The ballroom erupted, gasps, tears, applause. Sterling's business partners looked shocked. Janet's family members embraced each other. But Sterling's eyes found Steph, standing in the back with the catering staff, and he mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." She nodded, smiling through her tears. This is what she'd stayed for through all those years. This moment. "Sophie," Sterling continued, his arm around his daughter's shoulders, "I can't give you back the years we lost. I can't undo the hurt we caused. But if you'll let us, we'd like to spend every day we have left making it right. You have a family now. You've always had one. We were just too broken to find our way back to you." Sophie looked up at her parents. She let herself think the word for the first time. Parents, and nodded through her tears. "I'd like that." As the DJ restarted the music and guests mobbed them with congratulations and questions, Janet pulled Steph into a fierce hug. "How did you know?" she whispered. "I didn't, not for certain," Steph admitted. "But I've watched Sterling for 18 years. I know his tells, his sorrows, his secrets, and when I saw that girl sitting alone, looking at him like he hung the moon, I recognized the look of a child searching for her parents. Plus, she has his nose in her eyes. Couldn't be anyone else." "You gave us back our daughter," Janet said, her voice breaking. "No, honey. She found you all on her own. I just made sure you didn't miss your chance." As the night wore on, Sophie found herself on the dance floor, swept up in celebration. Sterling's business partners promised her internships. Janet's sisters already planned family dinners. Strangers became family in the span of an evening. During a slow song, Sterling held Sophie at arm's length and said, "I know we just met, but would you do your old man a favor? Dance with me? I missed your first dance, your first steps, your first everything. Can I have this one?" Sophie nodded, unable to speak, and let her father, guide her through the steps. "I have so many questions," she said finally. "We have time," Sterling promised. "All the time in the world. Starting with tomorrow. Move in with us. Finish your degree. Let us know you. Let us be the parents we should have been. I have an apartment, a job. Keep them if you want. We're not trying to take over your life. We just want to be part of it, however much you'll let us." Sophie thought about her tiny studio apartment, her 2 jobs, the loneliness that had defined her life since the Jones died. She thought about these 2 people who'd made a terrible mistake when they were barely older than she was now, who'd carried that mistake like a stone for decades, who'd just given her the wedding reception she'd never dare dream of having. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's try." Over Sterling's shoulder, she caught Steph's eye. The older woman smiled and raised her glass in a silent toast. Sophie smiled back, understanding that this woman, this stranger who'd recognized her when her own parents couldn't, was part of this strange new family too. Sophie sat at Sterling and Janet's kitchen island, textbooks spread before her, Steph humming as she prepared dinner. It still felt surreal sometimes, this life. She had parents who called to check in, a mother who helped her study for exams, a father who cried during their weekly movie nights. She had Steph, who'd become the grandmother she'd never had, teaching her to cook and telling stories about Sterling's early days as a broke entrepreneur. She had family dinners and inside jokes and people who knew her coffee order. She had someone to call when her car broke down, someone to share good news with, someone to simply be with. The lost years still hurt. She'd grieve them, with the help of the therapist Sterling insisted on paying for. But grief and joy could coexist, she was learning. You could mourn what was lost while embracing what was found. "Dinner at 20, Steph announced, pulling garlic bread from the oven. "Need help?" Sophie asked. "No, baby. You study. Your parents should be home soon. Your parents." The words still sent a thrill through her. Sophie returned to her economics textbook, but her mind wandered to the photo on the mantel. Her wedding day picture, Sophie between Sterling and Janet, all 3 of them smiling through tears. It had been the strangest, most beautiful wedding anyone had ever attended, and it had given Sophie something she'd stopped hoping for years ago. It had given her a home. Outside, Sterling's car pulled into the driveway. Through the window, Sophie watched her parents walk toward the house hand in hand, and for the first time in her life, she knew what it felt like to belong. Steph caught her expression and smiled. "See," she said softly, "sometimes the best weddings are the ones that bring more than 2 people together. Sometimes they bring the family home." Sophie nodded, smiling through the tears that still came easy these days. Happy tears, grateful tears, healing tears. "Yeah," she agreed. "Sometimes they do." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted and that even a broken path can lead to beautiful places and change of lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Arena, because your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading. Tell us in the comment what you would have done differently if you were the lost daughter. Would you have called her son? Or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life in ways you didn't expect? We'd love to hear your story.